Throughout the history of the world, there are numerous events that have taken place that can only be described as miraculous. These events are unable to be described any other way and are truly once-in-a-lifetime happenings. This is the story of Bahia Bakari, the young girl who survived a heartbreaking plane crash. Welcome back to Facts Fanatics. We are dedicated to bringing you the most shocking and downright unbelievable real-life incidents that stun the world. Today, we're going to discuss the incredible tale of a young girl who became a worldwide phenomenon in the wake of being the sole survivor of a deadly airplane crash. Her story is clear proof that sometimes things take place that cannot be described as anything other than a miracle. Let's get into it. Bahia Bakari was born on August of 1996 in the town of Évry, France, a few miles outside of Paris's city limits. She had 3 other siblings and was the oldest of 4. By all accounts, her family was a staple in her life, and she lived a happy childhood with her parents and siblings. In June of 2009, when Bakari was 12 years old, she and her mother, Aziza, set out on a trip to Comoros to take a relaxing and well-earned summer vacation. Their flight departed from Paris and landed in Yemen uneventfully. Once in Yemen, passengers bound for Moroni, Comoros, including Bahia and her mother, boarded Yemenia Flight 626. Most of the flight went off without a hitch, and they had nearly reached their vacation destination when everything turned horribly wrong. As the flight made its final descent on approach to the Prince Said Ibrahim Airport, the flight crew entered incorrect flight control inputs, and instantly, the plane started to blare warning signals. The airplane crew, just minutes before landing the plane, failed to comprehend the situation adequately. Rather than heed the airplane warning surrounding them, they froze for half a second too long. That delay led to a crippling aerodynamic stall, and the Airbus A310 suddenly plunged directly into the Indian Ocean, approximately 9 miles from the northern coastline of Comoros at 1:50 a.m. in the morning. Upon hitting the ocean surface, the Airbus plane shattered. No longer a plane, but a flotilla of wreckage and death. Bakari was ejected violently as the plane hit the water and found herself all alone in the depths of the water, surrounded by nothing more than plane debris. She had no life jacket and had only practiced swimming a handful of times, nowhere near the level she'd need to stay afloat on the sea. Thankfully though, she was able to float over to a large piece of wreckage from the plane and hang onto it for safety. Still, the little girl was alone in the middle of the night in the wide open ocean for what would be the longest hours of her life. Bakari continued clinging to the piece of plane wreckage for dear life as the reality of what had happened continued to sink in. At first, she heard other survivors yelling out, but slowly and one by one, those voices faded and she felt truly alone. Hours passed without any contact with another human being. She continued to float overnight, with no rescue option in sight. All she was left with was the taste of jet fuel and salt in her mouth and a burning feeling in her stomach and body. When the sun began to rise the following morning, Bakari recalls seeing a ship on the horizon. She thought to herself that this ordeal was going to be over, but as the ship continued, it became evident to Bakari that the ship was much too far away to spot a little girl clinging to the wreckage. Back ashore, the news of the crash had made waves with the officials of this small island nation off the coast of East Africa. The small nation, with a population of about 800,000, didn't have a fleet of ships. Its entire army consisted of about 500 people in the defense force, along with 500 police officers. Officials implored all private vessels in the area to assist in a joint search mission. Ships of all shapes and sizes embarked from their docks and set out to look for survivors. At around 11 a.m. local time, roughly 13 hours after the initial crash, a privately owned ship called the Semacom 2 arrived at the site of the wreckage and miraculously spotted Bakari, still clinging on for dear life. Initially, the crew aboard the Semacom 2 threw out a life preserver to the young girl, but the waters were extremely choppy, and Bakari was far too tired from hanging onto the wreckage all night to grasp it. One sailor recalls that when she saw the ship moving closer to her, she let go of the debris that had been keeping her alive. Suddenly, a large wave flipped her over and she disappeared underneath the surface. Only a few minutes later did she reappear on the surface, At that time, a sailor instinctively and heroically jumped into the water and attached a flotation device to her, which allowed them to pull her to safety aboard the ship. The crew immediately gave Bakari blankets and hot tea. The ship returned her to land, and she was transferred to the local hospital for further evaluation and care. By then, the news of the girl's survival had begun to make waves in the news across the world, with outlets reporting a true miracle had occurred. Bakari was soon transported back to France on a private jet. Once back home, Bakari was reunited with her father and siblings. At this point, she first discovered that her mother had been declared dead. She continued her rehab in a French hospital, where she was able to successfully recover from the ailments she received from the crash, including a broken pelvis and numerous lacerations. She was even visited by then French President Nicolas Sarkozy. In the following weeks, it was announced that she was the sole survivor of the crash, which claimed 152 lives. Bakari continued her life as best as she could, while at times feeling tremendous survivor's guilt and continually scarred by the loss of her mother. In 2010, she released a book that served as her first-hand account of the ordeal, titled Moi Bahia, La Miracule, French for I'm Bahia, the Miracle Girl. In the book, several details were released for the first time regarding her experience, including that at the time, she thought she had fallen out of the airplane rather than the plane crash. When she was in the water, she thought that her mother and others had made it to the airport and that her mother would scold her for not wearing her seatbelt. Mega producer and director Steven Spielberg has reportedly approached Bakari numerous times to make a film surrounding her life, but she has refused each time. There you have it, the nearly unbelievable story of a 12-year-old girl who could barely swim but clung to wreckage for over 13 hours to be the only sole survivor of a plane that hurtled towards the ocean, destroying almost everything upon impact. Wherever you lie on the spiritual spectrum, stories like that of Bahia Bakari prove that there are modern-day miracles that happen from time to time. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please help us to continue providing similar stories by liking and subscribing to our channel. Until next time.